Thanks for your time and for joining us this weekend. As the president looks to the new year, avoiding what is typical of all presidents in their last year, a lame duck presidency, what do you think will be his top issue?
Well, it's very different from when he took office 7 years ago. At that time, at the beginning of 2009, his biggest challenge was the financial crisis and getting the economy going. With the economy doing much better, I think clearly his biggest challenge is in the foreign policy area. And correct or not, public perception is the biggest obstacle is ISIS and coming up with a plan to defeat ISIS. So we have to fight ISIS in Iraq and in Syria and in the places where it's gained a new foothold, like in Afghanistan and in Libya. Now, what's particularly challenging for the president is he has far less troops in theater right now. In Afghanistan, he has only 9,800 troops, and in Iraq, 3,000 or 4,000 special forces in an advisory role. So he has to make progress against ISIS with far less troops on the ground. That's going to take deft foreign policy and diplomacy, and it's going to take building a coalition and, most challengingly, building a Sunni force that has legitimacy in Syria and in Iraq that can do the fighting and hold the areas that ISIS has right now once ISIS has pushed out. It's a big challenge for the president in the coming year.
It is a big challenge, and as you mentioned, messaging is part of what makes this so difficult. The fight against ISIS isn't a zero-sum game. You have seen the U.S. president take more of an effort to show and detail what the strategy and the efforts are to take on ISIS. But on that point, you've got a packed Republican field led by Donald Trump, all pushing to get Obama out of office and to take the country in a new direction. Which of those Republican candidates, in your view, is sticking out as a real threat that could actually win the general election?
Well, that's a very good point, because the Republican candidates are not very strong on foreign policy. They, very much like President Obama, whose foreign policy experience before he became president really consisted of just participating as a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Most of the most of the candidates on the Republican side do not have foreign policy experience. They're senators, they're former governors, in the case of Trump, just a businessman. So it's a big challenge, and we've seen them. They're really strained to come up with strong ideas on foreign policy, especially with respect to ISIS. You really don't hear many details on a plan to really defeat ISIS. So I think it's a big challenge. I think, one of the candidates who's kind of spoken most effectively about ISIS and about the situation in Syria and Iraq is Senator Rubio. He's had some good ideas. He's on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He's been more on the interventionist side, along the lines of Senator McCain, for instance, but he has some good ideas, and he's pretty good on it. Even, Dr. Ben Carson in the last debate had a few good ideas. Jeb Bush also has some ideas about how to stop ISIS. He talked about putting in a no-fly zone in Syria, which would create some room to build up a Sunni constituency to confront ISIS. So there's some good ideas on the Republican side, but really not any detailed plans on how to defeat ISIS.
And just in our last few seconds here, on the Democratic side, you've got Hillary Clinton touting her experience as Secretary of State, but might that actually do more to hurt her since the U.S. is in some negative spots internationally?
Well, that's a challenge for her. Compared to the Republicans, she does have foreign policy experience. She was the Secretary of State for 4 years, but she has to show that she's going to differentiate herself from the current policy of President Obama. And that's a challenge because she worked in the Obama administration. So she also has to come up with ideas that make sense, that would be effective, that are distinct from what the president is doing right now.
And we'll see all of that unfold in the weeks and months